Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are unpacking a single source, an extensive review of, well, one of the most talked about new cameras of the year, the Nikon Z6III.
It's been all over the place.
It really has. And our mission today is pretty simple. Does this camera, which comes in at about $2,500 with the world's first partially stacked sensor, does it actually deliver flagship performance? Or, is it just clever marketing?
That is the big question.
Okay, so let's just unpack this a bit. When you look at the specs, the question isn't really, is it fast? It's more like, how on earth did they manage this speed without that flagship price tag?
Right.
I mean, it has the brain of the Z8 and the Z9, the XP7 processor, that lets it hit 20 frames per second in RAW with full autofocus.
That's the key, the full AF tracking.
Exactly. It even has that 1-second pre-capture buffer, which is just so useful. You can literally capture the moment before you even press the shutter. And get this, the viewfinder is a mind-boggling 4,000 nits.
What's fascinating here is how they engineered that speed, because that really gets to the core of the compromise you're asking about.
Okay.
So think of a traditional sensor as a single highway, a fully stacked sensor that's like a massive superhighway.
Right, like in the Z9.
Exactly. This partially stacked design, though, it's like they built these little express lanes for data transfer right onto the chip itself. So it's way faster than the traditional sensor, but it's still cheaper to make than that Z9 superhighway.
So it's a clever workaround. But that raises an important question then. What did they trade for those express lanes?
And there it is. Independent testing labs published the sensor measurements, and it revealed the technical cost. The Z6 gives up nearly a full stop of dynamic range at its base ISO.
Wait, a full stop?
Yep. Specifically 10.46 stops instead of the expected 11.26.
Hold on, a full stop of dynamic range is a huge drop. That's often the same gap you see between a full-frame sensor and a crop sensor. Why would anyone accept that? Isn't that a step backward?
You'd think so, and on paper, it looks really bad. But this is where the source we're looking at calls it the smartest sacrifice in its class.
The smartest sacrifice? How so?
Because that missing dynamic range, it only really appears when you are doing extreme shadow recovery at base ISO.
Ah, okay.
So think of it this way. The landscape photographer who needs to pull every single last detail out of a dark shadow, they might feel that sting, but for basically everyone else, especially action shooters, it's negligible.
So for most people, it's not a real-world problem.
Exactly. And critically, by the time you push the camera to ISO 800, its dynamic range performance completely matches its predecessor, the Z6 II. The problem essentially vanishes.
Wow, okay.
And there's more, where many of its competitors take a heavy penalty in dynamic range when they use their fastest electronic shutters, sometimes losing 2 full stops.
Which is a huge deal if you're shooting fast.
A huge deal. The Z6III maintains perfect consistency. It shoots 20 frames per second with absolutely no dynamic range penalty between its mechanical and electronic shutters. And that consistency is often way more valuable than a theoretical peak number you can only hit in one specific mode.
So what you're saying is what you see is what you get no matter how you're shooting.
Pretty much.
So what does all this mean then? The conclusion that's drawn is that for $2,500, you're effectively buying about 90% of Z8's performance, just in a lighter body.
For anyone shooting sports, weddings, events, really anything that requires guaranteed speed and autofocus you can trust, this camera is an immediate game changer.
The source suggests that the only person who should really pause and think about it is that dedicated landscape photographer, the one who lives and dies by that absolute peak dynamic range at base ISO.
Right. For them, maybe the specialized Z7 is still a better fit for that specific niche.
So it all comes back to that engineered compromise you mentioned.
Exactly. The key takeaway is how much are you willing to trade in one highly specific area, that base ISO dynamic range, to gain just unparalleled speed, consistency, and pro features across the board.
We took a deep dive into the tech and the testing to see past the marketing claims and understand the real compromises here. And we'll leave you with this provocative thought. Does true flagship value mean achieving the highest possible peak number on one spec, or does it mean maximizing the floor guarantee and consistent professional results no matter what, even if it requires making a smart sacrifice?